Okay, yeah, sure, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
అది ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ చేయొచ్చండి.
సెట్టింగ్ గా పెట్టుకుంటే
అదే
ప్రాబ్లం వస్తే చెప్తారు.
ప్రభుత్వం హెల్త్ విత్ స్టాండర్డైజ్ మేబీ రేపు వాళ్ళు కూర్చుని ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ చేసి ఇంపోర్ట్ చేసే ఆప్షన్ ఉందండి. సెట్ చేసుకుని ఓకే ప్రభు. థ్యాంక్ యూ ప్రభు ఫర్ లెట్టింగ్ మీ స్మాల్ సర్వీస్. మేము బాగుంది దాంట్లో పంచుకోలేస్తున్నారు.
ప్రభు ప్రభు
శంకర్ బాబు మనకి ఈవెంట్ పంపించారు కదా,
దీనికి ఏం చేయాలంటే మీరు స్విచ్ చేసి పెట్టుకోండి. నెక్స్ట్ మీరు ఎప్పుడే కూర్చుంటారు కాబట్టి ఈ పక్కన కట్ చేసి గోడ పక్కన కూర్చుంటారు అనుకుంటారు. సర్వీస్ కదా ఎప్పుడు చేసుకో మనం కావాల్సిన ప్లేస్ కూర్చుంటాం.
కావాల్సిన దగ్గర కూర్చోవచ్చు కానీ కావాల్సినప్పుడు కూడా అక్షంతాలు కూడా
అది వేరే ఇంటికి చెప్పకూడదు.
అక్షంతలు కూడా ప్లేస్ లో ఉండాలి. మహారాజు అన్ని చూస్తారు కానీ ఫైట్ చేయకుండా ఇచ్చేసారు అనుకోండి.
తర్వాత ఫస్ట్ వైట్ చేసి పెట్టుకోండి. తర్వాత ఎవరు ఓపెన్ తీసి పెట్టుకున్న తర్వాత ఇది ఎలాగో ఉండదు. మీరు జస్ట్ స్టార్ట్ అయినప్పుడు ఇది మైక్ ఇచ్చేసి అప్పుడు ఇంకోటి తీసి పెట్టుకోండి. ఇది నల్ల ఉన్నదనుకోండి.
ఇది తీసుకున్నారు ఒకసారి క్లీన్ చేసి వేరే
ఓకే. అలా లేకుండా దీంట్లో క్వశ్చన్ చదవమంటే నేను చదువుతాను. ధీర వస్తే ధీర చదువుతాడు. ప్రభు దీనికి ఇప్పుడు ప్రభు అదర్వైజ్ మై ప్రాబ్లం వస్తుంది.
प्रभु शंकर गारी प्रभु bring the water from Maharaj.
No, Prabhu, you don't have water?
I have this water.
Yeah, Prabhu, మా ఇంట్లో నేను తీసుకున్నాను ప్రభు. I don't know pretty sure it will come or not, but మాతాజీకి మా ఇంట్లో వాటర్ లేదు ప్రభు, నా కార్లో ఉంది ఒకటి. నా కార్లో వెళ్ళి వంశధార ప్రభు కూర్చున్నారు కదా, దాంట్లో ఉండదు. So how are you going we here.
Okay, you people will sit here.
Yeah, they were sitting here, I'm sitting here. ఎక్కడ చూడండి మారాడు వచ్చేస్తారు కదా. దానికి ఆరులో డోర్లు
మీ సైడ్ సైడ్
పాసింగ్ చేశారు ప్రభు.
There's a time. Oh, thank you. Prabhu will come by exact 6:30 or 5? You know, Prabhu started movie or?
That I'm not sure ప్రభు. But ప్రభు will come.
Okay, I'll travel there. This is
Ready.
Mridanga? No mridanga. Gaya Radha Madhava Kunjari Hari Kunjari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjari Hari Radha Madhava Kunjari Hari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Bhalabha Girivara Dhari Nabalabha Girivara Dhari Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Nandana Brajajana Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Jadi Yamuna Tiravana Jadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jasoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Tiravana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Madhava Jaya Vishnupada Mahamsa Sri Mother's Divine Grace Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Gaur Premanandi. Could you remove the incense? It's calm. Does everybody know everybody? Our hosts and hostess. Does everybody know everybody?
No.
No? Yeah, do a little introduction. Some of your part of the group that you meet with, the Bhakti Vriksha group?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So who else is here besides your Bhakti Vriksha group?
So he is Satyanarayana. He is joining our Bhakti Vriksha recently. Like,
Recently?
yeah.
Okay.
Started
For 1 month. So we're going to be speaking about Lord Chaitanya, and you probably need an introduction to Lord Chaitanya, right? You know who is Lord Chaitanya? Something. Okay. Okay. That's good. Good.
And he is my friend. He is new today.
No. Okay. This is good to know.
He is Mataji from Odisha. He is from Odisha. There in the
Are they related to you?
yeah, this family is they are old Bhakti Vriksha, but his parents came.
Okay. Just today?
No, it's here in US maybe. Yeah, 1 month.
But the Mataji from Orissa came how recently?
Yeah.
Yeah.
1 month.
1 month. Okay, that gives me an idea. You've accomplished what I was looking for. Thank you. As you know, or you will know in a moment, we'll be observing later in this month of March, towards the end of the month, the appearance day of Lord Chaitanya. In our Hare Krishna movement, there are 4 full fast days minimum. One of them, of course, is Krishna Janmashtami and Ramchandra's appearance day, and Lord Nrsingadev's appearance day because he appears at dusk. And the other is Lord Chaitanya's appearance day. Big festival, very important day. And who is Lord Chaitanya? Who is Lord Chaitanya? Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, not an expansion of Krishna or an avatar of Krishna, but Krishna himself. How is that? According to the Bhagavatam, Krishna is the source of all avatars. Avatari in Sanskrit. All avatars emanate from Krishna, according to Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who comes in the mood and the complexion of Radha. There's a very important verse at the beginning towards the beginning, in the introductory verses of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Lord Chaitanya is described as being, well, Radha and Krishna Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritya Ladini Shakti Asmat Ekatmanavapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Beda Gatauta. Radha and Krishna are one entity, Ekatmanavapi, although one entity. Entity, Radha Krishna. But when Radha Krishna manifest in one form, that one form is Gauranga, or Lord Chaitanya. The reason for Lord Chaitanya's appearing as one form is for Krishna to experience the love that Radha has for him, the happiness that she feels in that love for him, and the qualities in him that she relishes, because the subject and object are not the same. Anyway, there's a nice science of love, subject and object, and the reciprocation. That's rasa, bhakti rasa. Nice science. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, who appears to taste the love of Radha and also to establish the Yuga Dharma. What's the Yuga Dharma? Yuga Dharma in general is Dharma for a particular age that's most effective to achieve perfection. In each of the 4 cycles of the 4 yugas, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali, there's different particular dharmas recommended. Dhyayate, meditation for Satya Yuga, performance of yajna during Ramchandra's age, Treta Yuga, deity worship, elaborate deity worship in Dwapara Yuga. And in this age, Harinam, chanting of the holy name, congregational chanting of the holy name, congregational chanting of the holy name. So he came to establish the congregational chanting of the holy name and to do these other things mentioned. So that's who is Lord Chaitanya, and we'll be observing his appearance day later this month. So the plan during this visit is really ecstatic. The plan is, one of the chief biographers of Lord Chaitanya's life wrote a book in 3 parts, Adi, Madhya, and Antya, beginning, middle, and end. Chaitanya Bhagavata, about the life of Lord Chaitanya. So we're just going to be reading the life of Lord Chaitanya from Chaitanya Bhagavata. Discussing, but you know that the core is starting from the first chapter, the first section is the advent of Lord Chaitanya. And a little bit about the author. The author is Vrindavan Das Thakur. I'll say something more tomorrow, but a little bit about Vrindavan Das. His writing style is different. Of course, everyone's different. His writing style is different than that of Krishnadas Kaviraj. Prabhupada translated. So it's BBT published. Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita is a biography of Lord Chaitanya's life. It's very scholarly. Scholarly in the sense that the author is Kaviraj Krishnadas. Kavi, Raj, very learned. Kavi, Raj, And so when he speaks points or writes them, he gives scriptural references, scriptural references, scriptural reference. It's very, very elevated text. The story of Lord Chaitanya's life is very sweet, and the philosophy is very crunchy, very chewy, very thick, very dense. That's Krishna Das Kaviraj. He's also eloquent, but it's very weighty in its content, explaining essences of teachings and his, purposes behind his pastimes. It's very profound. That's Krishna Das Kaviraj wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita. But that writing came after the first biography. The first biography was Vrindavan Das, and his writing style is absolutely spontaneous, meaning he just goes wherever his heart takes him, and the reader can follow along and just have their heart moved. And he doesn't try to explain things. He's just spontaneously expressing his love for Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. When he was a little boy, his mother, Narayani, when she was a little girl, she had received mercy from Lord Chaitanya. We'll hear about some more of that tomorrow because I want to get into the reading. But from the time that he was born, he was hearing about Lord Chaitanya. And he is said by the acharyas of his time, he was the Vyasadeva, as Vyasadeva was the biographer of Lord Krishna's life by writing Srimad Bhagavatam and Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita. Vyasadeva compiled those. So for Lord Chaitanya's life, that was Vrindavan, same, the Vyasadeva of Lord Chaitanya. So they actually even changed the name from what it was before. He called it something else. He called it Chaitanya Charitamrita. They called it Chaitanya Bhagavata. Just like Bhagavad Purana. Chaitanya Bhagavata. And but here's some more tomorrow because of the time constraint. This is an exercise, like a little journey, in hearing about Lord Chaitanya. These are just verses. It's not the Bhakti Siddhanta. Bhakti Siddhanta is Prabhupada's spiritual master. Bhakti Siddhanta wrote a commentary on the whole Chaitanya Bhagavata, also very scholarly. This is just verses. I'll comment here and there. But the main purpose of what we're doing is just hearing, Shravanam. And by hearing the purification of hearing the glories and activities and pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, purification and attraction. The result will be, I'm sure, for those who hear all of this, for me, for reading, deepening attraction for Lord Chaitanya, because he's Krishna himself, come to teach us how to surrender to Krishna. It goes like this. At the end of Bhagavad Gita, what's Krishna's final instruction? In the whole of Bhagavad Gita, the conclusion is Sarva dharmam parityaja ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papeyo mokshayeshani ma. Surrender unto me, abandon all other forms, put in a secondary position all other forms of dharma, and take this one as primary. What's that one? Mam ekam sharanam. And after Krishna left, shortly thereafter, Kali Yuga began. And Krishna began to consider, the Kali Yuga people are very unfortunate. They're less spiritually inclined and so forth, so it's at the dark age. So how are they going to understand how to apply Mam Ekam Sharanam. Best is if I come myself to teach how to. So his life is how to surrender unto Krishna. It's Krishna teaching how to surrender unto Krishna. But he's in the mood of Radharani, which is very important, because she's very important. So the mystery of Lord Chaitanya is like that. Radha and Krishna in two forms, energy and energetic, becoming one form. Krishna in the complexion and the bhav, the duty and the bhav of Radha. Radha bhava duty subalitam, naumi Krishna sarupam. Okay, so text one, it's 185 texts. That's in your seatbelt. And you'll open your ears. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sri Nityananda Prabhu, whose arms extend down to their knees, who have golden yellow complexions, and who inaugurated the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Their eyes resemble the petals of a lotus flower. They are the maintainers of the living entities, the best of the brahmanas, the protectors of religious principles for the sage, the benefactors of the universe, and the most merciful of all incarnations. Karuna avatar. O my Lord, you are eternally existing in the past, present, and future, yet you are the son of Sri Jagannath Mishra. I offer my repeated obeisances unto you along with your associates, your devotees, your sons, your Goswami disciples in the process of, or the processes of devotional service, such as congregational chanting of the holy name, and your consorts, who, according to regulative principles, refer to Vishnu Priya, who is Bhushakti, Lakshmi Priya, who is Sri Shakti, and Navadvip, which is Neela, Leela or Durga, and according to devotional principles, refer to the two Gadadhars. There's Gadadhar Das and Gadadhar Pandit. Nadahari, Ramananda, Jagadananda, and others. Now that's Bhakti Siddhanta's embellishment of the verse translation. Just a little bit. Shribu and Neela, those of you that are, let's say, from South India, you know those three. Lakshmi has these three, Lakshmi Narayan, Lakshmi has these three manifestations. Shri, Bhu, Neela, like many deities of Lord Narayan, Shri and Bhu. So Lakshmi Priya and Vishnu Priya, they were wives of Lord Chaitanya because they're his eternal consorts. And then Neela refers to the Dham, or devotional principles, and the persons who are manifesting those devotional principles. And he gives names. So the Lord in his potencies. So though he's Radha Krishna in one entity, one form, Gauranga or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has his manifestations of his consorts, Shribu and Neela, or Lakshmi Priya, Vishnu Priya, and his abode, Navadvip. I worship the two brothers, Sri Krishna Chaitanya and Sri Nityananda, who have descended in this world as the supreme controllers. They have appeared in covered forms as the embodiment of mercy. Covered forms means they didn't disclose their divinity. They concealed their divinity. When persons would say to Lord Chaitanya, "You are Vishnu himself," he put his hands over his head. "Vishnu, Vishnu," and went running into the Ganga, because it's an offense to call a jiva Vishnu. So when persons would call him Vishnu, he would purify himself by just from hearing that sound. No. Chana avatar is called, covered incarnation. Purposefully covered means because he was teaching how to surrender to Krishna, how to love Krishna, how to be a devotee of Krishna. It wasn't Krishna, he was in the mood, in the role, in the function, in the lila of a devotee. Covered. The other forms of the Lord don't do that. They're either brahmanas or kshatriyas, commonly. The lila avatars, sometimes the fish and the tortoise and stuff, but appearing as, when there's mother and father, appearing as brahman or kshatriya, but not, manifesting pastimes as the Lord. Chana avatar, covered forms, as the embodiments of mercy. All glories to Sri Gaura Sundar, whose powerful activities are supremely pure, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold, whose eyes are like lotus petals, whose 6 beautiful arms extended to his knees, whose heart is inundated by loving devotional sentiments as he enjoys dancing in various ways during kirtan. So the 6 arms, he normally didn't show 6 arms. But there were 2 occasions when he showed his form to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who some of you knew. He was the most scholarly person in all of India at the time. Well, besides Lord Chaitanya himself. Super scholar, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And Lord Chaitanya helped him become relieved from his scholarship, instead immersed in devotion. He still had scholarship, but he was puffed up and because, little blinded by his scholarship, unable to see Lord Chaitanya. In short, Lord Chaitanya helped him become freed from that pride and then showed him his 6-arm form. 6 arms, 2 arms is Krishna holding flute. 2 arms were Lord Ramachandra holding bow and arrow. And 2 arms holding danda and kamandalu, the articles of a sannyasi, Lord Chaitanya himself. 6-arm form, Sadbhuj. That's that reference. Text 5. All glories to Sri Krishna Chaitanya Chandra, who is the fully independent Supreme Personality of Godhead and the abode of transcendental pastimes. All glories to his eternally pure activities. Sri Gaura Sundara is the controller of all other controllers, the Lord of the universe, and the embodiment of transcendental knowledge. All glories to his devotees. And all glories to the dancing of his beloved associate. In the beginning, I offer unlimited obeisances to the feet of the loving confidential devotees of Lord Chaitanya. I offer my obeisances to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Now, he was given that name at his sannyasa initiation. When he was born the son of Jagannath Mishra. We heard his name already. And he gave him the name Nimai, because he was born under a neem tree. And so he was known in his childhood as Nimai Pandit. He was a teacher of grammar, Sanskrit grammar. And through the porthole, through the doorway of Sanskrit grammar, he taught the Vedas and the conclusion of the Vedas. But his renown was a grammar teacher, Nimai Pandit. When he was 24 years old, had a very beautiful wife, in Leela. It was his consort. his Shakti. He took sannyas, and from his sannyas guru, he was given a brahmachari name that Sri Krishna Chaitanya is a brahmachari name. So he kept it rather than some other name. He liked it, kept it. So he was Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I then offer my obeisances. Yeah. He incarnated in Navadvip, and he is known as Vishvambhar. Vishvambhar means the maintainer of the universe. Vishvambhar. That same Supreme Personality of Godhead has declared in the Vedas and Srimad Bhagavatam, quote, worship of my devotees is superior to worship of me, unquote. When the great devotee Uddhava inquired about pure devotional service and knowledge of the Supreme Lord for the welfare of all living entities, Lord Krishna glorified his devotees in this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 11:19-21, while describing the various limbs of pure devotional service. I have therefore offered my prayers first to the devotees, as this is the secret for attaining perfection. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Sri Nityananda Rai, for he is my worshipable Lord, who is also his Diksha Guru. By his mercy, Nityananda's mercy, the glories of Lord Chaitanya become manifest. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the thousand-headed Lord Balaram, meaning his Anantashesh expansion. His thousands of mouths are the abode of Lord Krishna's transcendental glories. Lord Ananta's mouths are the storehouse of gem-like glories of Lord Krishna, for valuable jewels are kept in a most appropriate place. Therefore, in the beginning, I offer my prayers to Lord Balaram, so that the glories of Lord Chaitanya will be manifest from my mouth. Now, as Krishna and Radha became Lord Chaitanya, his brother Balaram became Nityananda. And it's said that all of the associates of Lord Chaitanya have their Krishna Lila counterparts. When Krishna descends, he brings all of his associates. When Krishna departs, he sends them back to the spiritual world. Before he sends them back. When Lord Chaitanya descends, he comes with these same associates. And their counterparts in Krishna Lila. That's woven into this this text, and he has understanding of those who are followers of Lord Chaitanya. Those who accept Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself, accept that his associates are similarly his eternal associates and have their counterpart in Krishna's pastimes. Lord Balaram has thousands of hoods. Again, Balaram's expansion, Ananta. And all of his activities are extraordinary. The Supreme Lord Balaram carries a plow and possesses a gigantic body. Although he is exceptionally grave, he is intoxicated by the glories of Lord Chaitanya. There is no one more dear to Lord Chaitanya than Nityananda. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya always enjoys pastimes with him. Sri Krishna Chaitanya is most satisfied with one who chants or hears the characteristics of Lord Nityananda. Lord Shiva and Parvati also become pleased with such a person, and the transcendental goddess of learning, Saraswati, manifests on his tongue. Along with Parvati and innumerable maidservants, Lord Shiva engages in the worship of Sankarshana. Sankarshana is the form of the Lord that's when Lord Shiva is in meditation. That's who he is meditating upon. And Sankarshan is another name of Balaram. Sankarshan is a name that was given by Garga Muni at the name-giving ceremony. Chapter 8 of Canto 10, Garga Muni gave names for Krishna and Balaram. And Sankarshan is one of the names he gave for Balaram. The topics in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam concerning Lord Balaram, the original Sankarshan, are glorified by all Vaishnavas. The narrations of Lord Balaram's Rasa Leela pastime with the gopis in Vrindavan are most exalted. The Puranas describe how Lord Balaram performed his Rasa Leela in the 2 months of spring, Madhava and Madhu. When Krishna was in Dwarka, Balaram was encouraging Krishna, more than encouraging. He's the elder brother. Go to Vrindavan, your associates are not going to be able to bear that, continue their lives without your association. Please go, please go. Krishna didn't go, so Balaram went. And he spent months. And while he was there, he was giving his association to pacify the hearts of the residents of Vrindavan because they knew Balaram, like Krishna, as inseparable. So part of what he did, your references, he performed rasa dance with a different set of gopis than the ones that Krishna had rasa dance with. That's the reference. Now please hear those verses that were spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Lord Balaram, the personality Godhead, resided there for 2 months, the months of Madhu and Madhava, and during the night he gave the cowherd girlfriends conjugal pleasure. In the company of numerous women, Lord Balaram enjoyed in the garden by the Yamuna river. This garden was bathed in the rays of the full moon and caressed by breezes bearing the fragrance of night-blooming lotuses. As the Gandharvas sang his glories, Lord Balaram enjoyed with the brilliant circle of young women. He appeared just like Indra's elephant, lordly Airavata, enjoying in the company of she-elephants. At that time, kettle drums resounded in the sky. The Gandharvas joyfully rained down flowers, and the great sages praised Lord Balaram's heroic deeds. Sages condemned the association of women, yet they glorified Lord Balaram's association with the cowherd girls in the rasa dance. The demigods came and showered flowers on his Rasa Leela because they know there is no difference between Krishna and Balaram. The characteristics of Lord Balaram are confidential to the Vedas, but they are elaborated in the Puranas. What will I describe? Due to foolishness, some people neglect the Puranas and refuse to accept the authenticity of Balaram's Rasa Leela. The 2 brothers, Krishna and Balaram, both performed Rasa Krida pastimes in the company of the gopis at the same place in Vrindavan. Once, Lord Govinda and Lord Rama, the performer of wonderful feats, were playing Holi in the forest at night with the young girls of Braja. This is the Shankachuta pastime. Chapter 34, as was tradition then and today, Holi is a time when songs are sung and music is performed and dancing and so forth. So they were performing Holi, Balaram, Krishna, and some girls. Krishna and Balaram wore flower garlands and spotless garments, and their limbs were beautifully decorated and anointed. The women sang their glories in a charming way, bound to them by affection. The 2 lords praised the nightfall, signaled by the rising of the moon and the appearance of stars, a lotus-scented breeze, and bees intoxicated by the fragrance of jasmine flowers. Krishna and Balaram sang, producing the entire range of musical sounds simultaneously, which is not possible, but they did it. Their singing brought happiness to the ears and minds of all living beings. One who has no love for Lord Balaram after hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam is rejected by both the Lord and his devotees. No, it doesn't say here, but when that was going on, that's when Shankachuta was a follower of Kuvera, and he had befriended Kamsa, and Kamsa sent Shankachuta to go. This is according to Rupa Goswami in Lalita Madhava. Kamsa had sent, before they actually came as demons, he sent 2 of his demoniac associates, Rishtasura and Keshi, go check out the scene in Vrindavan, because he heard that Putin had been killed. So they went to check out the scene, and they reported back to Kamsa. This boy is amazing, and his there's a wonderful friend of his, Radharani, and I think she'd be suitable for you. It was a little bit like Ravana, here's a lady that you can be the enjoyer of. Similar to what Ravana did. So he sent Shankachuta to go kidnap Radha. So Shankachuta came, and he came right in the midst of what they were performing holy. And he just ignored Krishna and Balaram because they were men. And off he goes with Radharani and the gopis. That was a big mistake. So Krishna pursued him and finished him. So that's not narrated here, but that's part of that pastime. It's chapter 34 of Krishna Book or Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10. One who does not accept Srimad Bhagavatam is no better than a Yavana, and your Lord Yamaraj punishes him birth after birth. Nowadays, some faithless persons challenge, in which scriptures Balaram's Rasa Leela described? Some sinful persons do not accept this pastime, even if they read about it in the scriptures. They distort the actual meaning of the scriptures into some other meaning. Lord Nityananda is the dearmost object of Chaitanya Chandra, and therefore anyone who commits an offense at his lotus feet is vanquished. Lord Balaram appears in various forms. As the servant of the Lord, he manifests these symptoms in various incarnations. Lord Balaram serves Krishna in 10 different ways. As his friend, brother, fan, bed, carrier, residence, umbrella, garments, ornaments, and sitting place. Doesn't include shoes. An umbrella. Oh, there's an umbrella. Okay. In all these forms he serves himself. Whoever receives his mercy can understand this truth. Oh, my Lord, when will I satisfy you and Lakshmi, who are both seated on the bed of Ananta? Although he is your transcendental personal expansion, he has accepted your service in the form of your residence, bed, sitting place, slippers, garment, pillows, and umbrella. Therefore, he is appropriately known as Shesha. Now that's that's a verse from Stotra Ratna. And those of you know Stotra Ratna, it's Jamunacharya. And Jamunacharya is from the Sri Sampradaya, who wrote Stotra Ratna, and he's glorifying Lord Balaram in this way, or Sankirtana. The most powerful Sri Garuda, the expansion of Anantadev, enjoys his pastimes as Krishna's carrier. Other devotees, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, the 4 Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumar, Vyasadeva, Shukadev, Goswami, and Narada are all pure devotees, eternal servants of the Lord. Lord Sri Ananta is worshipped by all the uncontaminated devotees mentioned above. He has thousands of hoods and is a reservoir of all devotional service. That is to say, one of the glorifications of Balaram is he is the embodiment of service. He loves service. And he serves in all the different rasas, and he is the source when you need strength to do some service, Balaram. Balaram. Sometimes you get a little weary, Balaram. Lord Ananta is the first incarnation of the Lord and the master of all mystic power. At the same time, he is a servant of God, a Vaishnava. Since there is no end to his glories, no one can understand it fully. I have already spoken to you about Anantadev's influential service to the Lord. Now hear how the self-sufficient Ananta exists in the lower planetary system at Patala. Right? Ananta is at the bottom of the universe. And well, here. Bearing his stringed instrument, the tumbaru, on his shoulders, the great sage Narada Muni always glorifies Lord Ananta. In Brahma's assembly, Narada Muni has composed many transcendental verses in praise of the Lord. By his glance, the Supreme Personality of Godhead enables the modes of material nature to act as the causes of universal creation, maintenance, into destruction. The Supreme Soul is unlimited and beginningless, and although he is one, he has manifested himself in many forms. How can human society understand the ways of the Supreme? This manifestation of subtle and gross matter exists within the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Out of causeless mercy towards his devotees, he exhibits various forms, which are all transcendental. The Supreme Lord is most liberal, and he possesses all mystic power. To conquer the minds of his devotees and to give pleasure to their hearts, he appears in different incarnations and manifests many pastimes. Even if he be distressed or degraded, any person who chants the holy name of the Lord, having heard it from a bona fide spiritual master, is immediately purified, even if he chants the Lord's name jokingly or by chance. He and anyone who hears him are freed from all sins. Therefore, how can anyone seeking disentanglement from material pleasures avoid chanting the holy name of Lord Shesha? Of whom else should one take shelter? Because the Lord is unlimited, no one can estimate his power. This entire universe, filled with its many great mountains, rivers, oceans, trees, and living entities, is resting just like an atom on one of his many thousands of hoods. Sometimes it says mustard seeds on the hoods. A universe with all of its stuff. Is there anyone even with thousands of tongues who can describe his glories? There's no end to the great and glorious qualities of the powerful Anantadev. Indeed, his prowess is unlimited. Although self-sufficient, he himself is the support of everything. He resides beneath the lower planetary systems and easily sustains the entire universe. Simply due to the glance of Lord Ananta, the three material modes of nature interact and produce creation, maintenance, and annihilation. These modes of nature appear again and again. The Lord is glorified as one without a second, and as the supreme truth, who has no beginning. Therefore he is called Anantadev, unlimited. Who can understand his ways? His form is completely spiritual, and he manifested only by his mercy. All the activities in the material world are conducted within his form. He is very powerful and always prepared to please his personal associates and devotees with waves of pastimes. If we simply try to engage in the congregational chanting of the glories of Lord Anantadev, the dirty things in our hearts, accumulated during many births, will immediately be washed away. Therefore, a Vaishnava never misses the opportunity to glorify Anantadev. Lord Anantadev is known as Shesha, the unlimited end, because he alone ends our passage through the material world. By chanting his glories, everyone can be liberated. On his head, Anantadev sustains the entire universe with its millions of planets containing enormous oceans and mountains. He is so large and powerful that this universe rests on one of his hoods, just like a mustard seed. There it is. Indeed, he does not know where it is. While bearing the universe on one of its hoods, Anantadev chants the glories of Krishna with each of his thousands of mouths. Although he has been chanting the glories of Lord Krishna since time immemorial, he has still not come to their end. Both are unconquerable. To this very day, Lord Ananta continues to chant the glories of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and still he finds no end to them, until he's ecstatic. How wonderful is the competition between Balaram and Krishna, Brahma and Shiva, along with the demigods, siddhas, and munis. Watch in great happiness. Although Ananta tries to reach the shore of the ocean of Krishna's qualities, he is unable to do so, for the ocean is continually expanding. Neither I nor all the sages born before you know fully the omnipotent personality of Godhead, so what can others who were born after us know about him? Even the first incarnation of the Lord, namely Shesha, has not been able to reach the limit of such knowledge, although he is describing the qualities of the Lord with 1,000 faces. The most powerful Lord, Anantashesh, happily resides in Rasatala in order to maintain the universe. It's actually a little below Rasatala. And it's even below Rasatala. Below Rasatala is a little space where the hellish planets are. And he's below that. He supports everything. Sri Narada Muni visits the assembly of Lord Brahma and glorifies the qualities of Lord Ananta, accompanied by his Veena. Headed by Lord Brahma, everyone is overwhelmed by hearing the Lord's glories. Narada Muni is worshipped everywhere for chanting the Lord's glories. I have thus described a portion of Lord Ananta's glories. Please therefore develop attachment for Lord Nityananda. My only desire at the feet of the Vaishnavas is that birth after birth I may worship the feet of Lord Balaram. Just as Dvija, Vipra, and Brahmana are different names of the same person, Nityananda, Ananta, and Baladev are similarly different names of the same Lord. Lord Nityananda, who is the Super Soul, joyfully instructed me to write a book on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. By the mercy of Lord Nityananda, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya will become manifest because his tongue is the storehouse of Lord Chaitanya's glories. Therefore, Lord Sri Ananta is the embodiment of Lord Chaitanya's glories. Thus I have described a fragment of Lord Ananta's glories. Hearing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Chandra brings all auspiciousness, but know for certain that they are revealed only through the mercy of the devotees. Who can understand the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya? They are confidential, even to the Vedas. Therefore, I will write only what I have heard from the devotees. I do not find a beginning or end to the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya. I write whatever inspires me. Whatever I describe is only by the direction of Sri Gaura Chandra, just as a puppet dances only by the direction of the puppeteer. Let me offer my respectful obeisances at the feet of the Vaishnavas, so that I may not commit any offense to them. My dear brother, please hear with attention the topics of Sri Chaitanya concerning the various pastimes that he performed with his devotees. The pastimes of Sri Chaitanya are the abode of all happiness. These pastimes are divided into Adikanda, Madhyakanda, and Anantakanda. The Adikanda mainly describes the Lord's scholastic pastimes, and Madhyakanda, the Lord's kirtan pastimes, are described. The Antyakanda contains descriptions of the Lord's residence in Jagannath Puri as a sannyasi and his entrusting the Bengal preaching to Nityananda Prabhu. Jagannath Mishra, that's his father, was always enthusiastic in following religious principles while residing in Navadvip. He was equal to Vasudeva, the father of Lord Krishna. His most chaste wife, Sachi Devi, was just like Devaki, the universal mother. From the womb of Mother Sachi appeared Narayana. His name, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, is the ornament of this world. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord's appearance during an eclipse on the night of the Palgun Purnima is described. Preceding the Lord's birth, the auspicious names of Lord Hari were heard from all directions. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord displays various pastimes as a child. He also reveals his own abode to his parents. In Adi Kanda, the Lord's parents are astonished to see footprints marked with the signs of a banner, a thunderbolt, an elephant, gold, and a flag. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord is kidnapped by thieves who become bewildered and return the Lord to his home. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord eats grains. In the house of Jagannath, Jagadish and Hiranya on the day of Ekadasi. It's significant. It's a nice pastime. We'll get there. I'm tempted to say that it's such a nice pastime. But he's in a Vaishnava family. Vaishnavas don't eat grains on Ekadasi. But he said to his mother and father, Jagadish and Hiranya, they've made wonderful offering. I'd like to go there and eat it. So they thought it was just child talk. They told Jagadish and Hiranya. They said, wow, how did he know? Because they made something very, very special for the Lord. So he was brought there and he ate it. Because he's the Lord. Nice pastime. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord tricks everyone into chanting the holy names of Hari by crying as a child. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord sits on rejected cooking pots and instructs his mother on the absolute truth. In the Adi Kanda, Gauranga displays unlimited restlessness and imitates his Gokula pastimes with his friends. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord begins his studies, and in a short time he becomes a teacher of the scriptures. In Adi Kanda, Sachi Devi laments for both the disappearance of Jagannath Mishra and the acceptance of sannyas of Vishwarup. In the Adi Kanda, at the beginning of the Lord's educational pastimes, he appears to the atheists as the personification of pride. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord, along with other students, sports fearlessly in the waters of the Ganges. In the Adi Kanda, Lord Gauranga masters all the scriptures. No one in the three worlds can compete with him. In the Adi Kanda, the Lord travels to East Bengal. There's a nice story in this Best of Scholars. He had a classmate. His classmate was competitive. Like Lord Chaitanya was the personality of Godhead, but he wanted to be, the competitor. So he wrote a book on grammar. And he presented it to Nimai to review. And Nimai said, "Oh, I already have a book on grammar." And this competitor friend of his started wailing and moaning and groaning and said, "Oh, whatever you've written is going to be better than mine." So Nimai said, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be upset," so he threw it over the side of the boat. Because he didn't want to compete. Wanted to please his friend. Nice pastime. But that system of teaching grammar, it became known by Jiva Goswami, and later he taught it and wrote a book according to what it's a system of grammar. There's so many rules and rules and rules. But the system where nama karana, names were given for each of the Sanskrit rules. So when you were memorizing the Sanskrit rules, it'd be names of Krishna. That's the basis of that text. So in our Gurukula, in Mayapur and Vrindavan, they teach Jiva Goswami's Sanskrit grammar using that same system. Those Lord Chaitanya's system. Anyway. In the Adikanda, the Lord travels to East Bengal, modern-day Bangladesh, which becomes a holy place by the touch of his lotus feet. The Adikanda describes the disappearance of Lakshmi Priya. That was his first wife. And the Lord's second marriage with the daughter of Raja Pandita. In the Adikanda, the Lord displays ecstatic devotional sentiments on the pretension of an imbalance of bodily airs. In Adikanda, the Lord empowers the devotees and wanders about as a great scholar. In Adikanda, Mother Sati floats in an ocean of happiness on seeing the moonlight face of the Lord, who dresses enchantingly and enjoys transcendental pleasure. In Adikanda, Lord Gauranga defeats Digvijay's scholar and ultimately delivers him from all bondage. We're getting close to getting done, but we have some more to go. In the Adikanda, the Lord bewilders the devotees and lives among them as an ordinary person. In the Adikanda, Lord Vishwambar goes to Gaya and bestows mercy on Sri Ishwar Puri, means he became his disciple. In Adikanda, there are innumerable pastimes that will be described in the future by the great sage Vyasadeva. In the Adikanda, begins with the Lord's childhood pastimes and continues through his visit to Gaya. In the Madhyakanda, the lion-like Lord Gauranga reveals himself so that the devotees who are like bees at his lotus feet are able to recognize him. In the Madhyakanda, the Supreme Lord reveals his identity at the house of Srivas and Advaita Prabhu while sitting on Vishnu's altar. In the Madhya Kanda, the Lord meets Nityananda Prabhu, and the two brothers perform kirtan together. In the Madhya Kanda, Nityananda Prabhu sees the Lord's six-armed form, and Advaita Prabhu sees the Lord's universal form. In the Madhya Kanda, there's a description of the Vyasa Puja performed by Lord Nityananda, who is criticized by sinners and atheists. In the Madhya Kanda, Lord Gauranga accepts the mood of Balaram, and Nityananda Prabhu gives him a plow and a club. In Madhya Kanda, there's a description of the deliverance of the two most sinful persons known throughout the world as Jagai and Madhai. In the Madhya Kanda, Mother Sakshi sees Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda in their blackish and whitish forms as Krishna and Balaram. That's really nice pastime. In the Madhya Kanda, the Lord displays his Mahaprakash, his divine opulences, for 21 hours. On that day, the Lord spontaneously revealed the past identities of his servants. In the Madhya Kanda, Narayana, the Lord of Vaikuntha, dances and personally performs kirtan throughout the streets of Navadvip. In Madhya Kanda, the Lord breaks the Kazi's pride while manifesting his potency in a tremendous kirtan. By the benediction of Lord Gauranga, the Kazi attains devotional service. Thus, all the devotees are allowed to freely perform kirtan in the streets of Navadvip. In the Madhya Kanda, the Lord accepts the form of Varaha and discloses his identity to Murari Gupta. In the Madhya Kanda, the Lord accepts the four-armed form and rides on Murari's shoulders throughout the courtyard. Murari Gupta, the physician. Nice pastime. In In Madhyakanda, the Lord eats Shuklambar Brahmachari's rice and performs various pastimes as Narayana. In Madhyakanda, Gaura Narayana dances in the dress of Rukmini and breastfeeds all the devotees. In Madhyakanda, the Lord punishes Mukunda for associating with Jnanis and later blesses him with great satisfaction. In the Madhyakanda, there are descriptions of the all-night kirtans that the Lord performs for 1 year in Navadvip. In the Madhyakanda, Nityananda and Advaita exchange jokes, which ignorant people consider as quarreling. In the Madhyakanda, the Lord warns everyone about offending Vaishnavas, using his mother as an example. In the Madhyakanda, all the Vaishnavas receive benedictions after offering prayers. In the Madhyakanda, Haridas Thakur received the Lord's mercy, and the Lord mercifully drinks Sridhar's water. In the Madhyakanda, the Lord daily sports in the waters of the Ganges with the devotees. In the Madhyakanda, Lord Gauranga and Nityananda Prabhu go on a mission to Advaita Prabhu's house. This is little codes, because the whole thing is... The Lord punishes Advaita and then bestows great mercy on him. The most fortunate Bhari Gupta is able to recognize Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda to be Krishna and Balaram. The two Lords, Chaitanya and Nityananda, dance together in the house of Srivas Thakur. The Lord induces Srivas's dead son to speak on the science of the soul, thus destroying everyone's sorrow. That's really far up. One of the evenings, they're having kirtan. And all of a sudden, there's sobbing. There's ladies in the back, and some of the servants, they start sobbing. But they kirtan, so Srivas, the father, of the owner of the house and being his facilities, goes to find out why. And he finds out why Srivas's son died right in the middle of the kirtan. And he scolds him, "Don't make this noise, it'll disturb Lord Chaitanya's kirtan." So when the kirtan is over, everyone is very solemn and grave, and Lord Chaitanya said what happened. So he went straight to Srivas's son's bedroom and found him dead. So he placed his hand on Srivas's chest, Srivas's son's chest, and said, "Rise, your father is feeling great separation from you." So the dead son sat up and started speaking on the science of the soul. Pretty amazing. And it's very similar, not the same, but very similar to King Chitraketu, and it's the exchange that took place in 6th canto with his son and Narada. And so that Srivas Pandit's son closed his eyes, left his body again, and laid back down. Everyone was astonished, hearing the science of the soul from a departed son of Srivas. A very amazing pastime. In this way, Srivas Thakur gave up lamentation over his son's death. This incident became known to everyone. The Lord, in distress, jumped into the Ganges, and Nityananda and Haridas pulled him out. Narayani received Lord Chaitanya's remnants, which are rarely attained even by Lord Brahma. That Narayani is the mother of the author here, Vrindavadas. The Lord leaves home and accepts sannyas in order to deliver living entities. The pastimes in Madhyakanda begin with the Lord's kirtan and end with his acceptance of sannyas. That's the division. There are millions of other pastimes in the Madhyakanda that will be described in the future by Srila Vyasadeva. So the final conclusion, he takes sannyas. Advaita Prabhu cries profusely upon hearing that the Lord has shaved his shika and hair. Sachi Devi laments indescribably that the devotees remained alive only by the influence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He goes to Puri. The Lord teases Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, this super scholar I mentioned. But later he displays his six-armed form to him. The Lord delivers the king, Maharaj Prataparudra. He resides in the house of Kashi Mishra. He makes close association with Srup Damodar and Paramananda Puri. There's several more pages and I'm thinking we should end. So the Antyakanda gives a list of his pastimes. In the Antyakanda, the Supreme Lord Sri Gaurachandra resides in Nilachala for 18 years. So he was on earth for 48 years, 24 and 24. So the first 6 of those 24 years in Puri were spent in other places. Accepting Sri Chaitanya and Nityananda Prabhu as my life and soul, I, Vrindavadas, sing the glories of their lotus feet. Thus ends English translation of the Gaudiya Bhashya of Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Chapter 1, entitled Summary of Lord Gaura's Pastimes. Now, obviously, what's coming up later is going to be a little different. It's going to be elaboration on all these little strains. And, of course, the pastimes require some faith in principle, faith in Krishna, and this is the succession from Krishna that's delivering the pastimes in the description. It's not so dissimilar for people who, Western people, like myself. You hear the pastimes in Mahabharata or Ramayana or the Bhagavatam, and those of you that are from India, you hear them since childhood, and so it's not. No, your son, just calm down. So it's not like persons that are new to those pastimes. So any of them, all of them. It takes faith, and some people aren't faithful, and it's like a stretch for them just to hear with faith. But the nature of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, again, this is Chaitanya Bhagavata, it's from Vrindavan Thakur. He's not making any effort to explain what and why. He's just ecstatically describing, as he said, what he heard from the devotees, because he grew up from childhood hearing directly from devotees that experienced his pastimes. So it's not exaggeration. Krishna is limited or unlimited? Easy. Unlimited. So when he exhibits unlimitedness, it's part of his opulence, it's part of his unlimitedness. Now sometimes he appears like a cowherd boy, and sometimes he does extraordinary things like lifting Govardhan Hill. And to a worldly person, oh, come on. And for those of us that are Vaishnavas, that's just part of his greatness. In so many ways to explain. We're more accustomed to hearing Krishna's pastimes and less accustomed because why? Because he's Chana avatar. There was a discussion, somebody from South India. Actually, they're not from South, they're from Punjab. Somebody from Punjab asked, why is it that we don't see in India, prior to ISKCON, so many, temples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Gaura deities and things like that. We don't see it. Why? And, for that matter, when Lord Chaitanya went to Vrindavan, the places of Krishna's pastimes were lost. Nobody knew nothing about nothing. And he found where is Radhakund and Shamakund, where Govardhan Hill was visible just by topography. It was a big hill. But where the places of Krishna's pastimes were, it was unknown. And he assigned to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and they in turn took assistance from others without the details. And they began establishing places and temples and so forth. So now when we go to Vrindavan, this and this and this. But it was lost because thousands of years had passed. In Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, the places of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are also lost. And it was Bhaktivinoda Thakur who established many, including his birthplace. Although there was scriptures or texts, biographies of his life written, where things were and what, everything was unknown. But then he established, like the Goswamis did in Vrindavan, he established in Mayapur. And then he had his son do the same. And there's lots of history of how all of that unfolded. But the places of the pastimes and the places of pastimes are real. It didn't happen so many years ago, 500 and something years ago. And there's, many references that cross-reference what Lord Chaitanya did and said and where and so forth. And then there's temples. And through the work of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his son Bhaktisiddhanta and his Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, especially Srila Prabhupada, all over the world. Because it was predicted by Lord Chaitanya, the day will come when my name will be heard and chanted in every town and village in the world. So by that prophecy, it's bound to happen. So by the writings of our Goswamis, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya and the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya have become known. And then expanding that through the preaching and the efforts of Vaishnavas. Because how does any tradition get preserved and continued? How would anybody know about Ramanujacharya or Madhvacharya or anybody? Some scholars may know something, but the world may not know too much. So it takes persons who live that life and speak the message, which is just what we're doing. So for some of the newer people, this is like, wow, I never heard all this stuff before. I'm just commenting on that, how that might be striking the hearts and the minds. But look at me. I'm a kid from America. So how am I giving my life to this? It's from the faith and the disciplic succession. Of course, with collaboration with different authors of different periods of time, doing so many things. I'll share. Shankadari remind me to send you. There's the Oxford University Religion Department, the Department of Hindu Studies. It's mainly Vaishnavism, but it's called Department of Hindu Studies. They just made they just released a film. It's a little over an hour long. That's narrating the Bhagavad Purana seminar that took place in Chennai. Doesn't give the date. But it's scholars from around the world speaking just like, Hare Krishna people speak. And they're not Hare Krishna people. They're scholarly people. They have an understanding of the Bhagavad Purana in the way that sounds like Hare Krishna people. It's not just Hare Krishna people who say these things. They have understandings of, professor from Columbia University speaks like this. It's nice to hear. The world is starting to understand because it's being promoted and proliferated. And largely, one of the greatest exponents of the Bhagavad Purana is Srila Prabhupada, well known by scholars in the world. Not only that he commented on the entire Srimad Bhagavatam, but he popularized it. He made it available to just general people, not just scholarly people. You take a college course at Columbia University or University of Oxford, and they know something about Bhagavad Purana. It's a big hill or mountain to climb to make this well known to people, but it's so valuable. It's the Yuga Dharma to hear about Krishna teaching us how to surrender to Krishna. Wonderful. Okay, so is there any discussion or questions or comments or anything? I compliment you for the social distancing you've managed in your house here. Next one. With pastime, there's not too many questions. But we're speaking, who is Lord Chaitanya? Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, you were saying the Lord's potency is Shri, Bhu and Nila. I don't know about Nila.
Going to read what it says? Those are the three. Shri and Bhu are common, and Nila is the third. So what is it? It's the place of his pastimes. The potency that manifests the place of his pastimes, or the principles of devotional service. So for us, it's like Bhakti Devi was an expansion of Radharani. But in this other nomenclature, it's Nila. And the Lord's associates that are embodying those principles of devotional service. Those are the three that are the subdivisions of Nila. The place, the devotional service, and the devotees. It's the Lord's internal potency manifesting those.
One more. As you were saying, Lord Chaitanya, his name is Vishwambara, is a maintainer of the universe. And it's also, Jagannath also, the name is the maintainer of the
He's the Lord of the universe.
Lord.
But there's overlap because it's the Lord, but specifically in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj gives, Lord Chaitanya maintains, it's called Vishwambar. There's different meanings besides this one, but because he floods the world with love of God, in this way he maintains the universe.
I want to hear that he's a maintainer of the universe. So for the devotees, it's how is his maintenance? We can take it as.
I don't understand your question. Try it again.
Yeah. As a maintainer, how he is maintaining the devotees. It's not just the physical maintenance.
Well, it's not just the food that you eat and the water that you drink. It's the vitality, the life of the life. And other things come with that, from material well-being follows spiritual well-being, but he's the life of the devotees. He maintains them through the medium of his devotional service. That's sustaining our life. It's similar to your question about Leela. It's one of his potencies, and through those potencies he does. Back. I will.
Good Maharaj, it's about Lord Balaram. Like how to bring him into a meditation, because I never tried it, but it doesn't come to my mind at all.
Here's a real easy one. Real easy. Balaram is the source of strength. To do your service to Krishna, you need strength. So when you're chanting Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, you can meditate on Rama as one of the names given by Gargamuni to Balaram. Rama means Balaram. Sometimes you just think, oh, Rama, Rama. That can mean Krishna, it can mean Lord Ramachandra, it can mean Balaram. So it's, for me, this is part of my japa meditation. Regularly, not every day, all the time, but it's part of my japa meditation. When chanting the name Rama, it makes the name more meaningful and more personal, because it's a call for Balaram for spiritual strength to carry out my service to him, my service to Krishna. I just had a communication the other day, yesterday. It was this morning, with a devotee in China, a mother of 2 teenagers, writing curriculum for teaching Bhakti Shastri in Chinese, and supporting her husband because he's without a job right now. So she's like, she was expressing, I shouldn't speak like this, but I don't have the strength to. I told her what I just said to you. I sent her 2 pictures of Krishna Balaram and one picture of Balaram. Print them. And while you're chanting, part of your chanting is, it can be your question with meditation. Call to Lord Balaram for strength to serve Krishna, because you can't without strength. And sometimes it gets a little heavy. Sometimes it's less than heavy, but sometimes it's so. In all circumstances, to carry out your duties of life, you need strength. You need intelligence, but you also need strength. And Balaram is the original instructor. He's the original Shiksha Guru. So when you're chanting, call out to him. Besides your own efforts, it's the mercy part. And then it becomes very personal. Mantra chanting is not just, sound or something that you do. It's a relationship. In meditation upon that relationship, the necessity for strength, spiritual strength. It's a nice meditation. How are we doing? Something, one more? Go ahead. Do we have anything online?
Guru Maharaj, just wanted to know a little bit about Vrindavan Das Thakur, the author. He said Mother Narayani was only 4 years old when Lord Chaitanya was performing Sankirtana in Srivas Acharya's home. And then
She was only 4 years old when what?
when Lord Chaitanya gave the mercy to her,
Gave what message to her? To cry ecstatically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was young. In comparison to the other Vaishnavas, Vrindavan Das was very young.
No, Vrindavan Das Thakur's mother was a young little baby.
Yes. Not, but she grew up.
And
She
then,
didn't say little baby.
I know, yeah, that's right. But when did Vrindavan Das Thakur got association of Lord Chaitanya?
He didn't. He got association with Lord Nityananda. He heard about Lord Chaitanya. Okay.
So by just hearing about Lord Chaitanya,
That's right. That's it.
he
That's
got
it.
so excited.
Well, he was in association with, a whole community of pure devotees who were in love with Lord Chaitanya, who had his direct association. It was a big fire, with blazing fire of bhakti. He got, he was on fire. He was on fire. He didn't have association, no.
But Lord Chaitanya was still present in Jagannath Puri at that time.
You can do the math. I'm not going to do the math for you. He didn't have, the main thing is he didn't have Chaitanya's association directly. Anything else? Okay. Yes?
Hare Krishna. So, I'm trying to compare with the Lord Krishna's pastimes and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. The gopis, they were considering Krishna as just their lover. And even though his friends, Krishna's friends were there, he was revealing his Supreme Personality of Godhead sometimes on it, but still he was covering as a Yogamaya, such a way that Krishna can enjoy more pastimes on it. Whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was exhibiting in his pastimes the real, saying that he is the personality of Godhead. Whereas Krishna was with his Yogamaya potency on it, covering them. One was covering it, whereas Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is revealing his true identity for the Leela pastimes. One was covering the other.
I got it. You're repeating. So now, what's your message?
So, but my question is, I think there was a little difference on how he was.
That's very different.
Yeah.
Here's two examples how it's very different. Gadadhar Pandit is Radharani. Now Gadadhar Pandit is in a male body, and Lord Chaitanya was in a male body, but the mood was that as Radha to Krishna. Now, obviously there wasn't the same kind of conduct with one another. The actual physical pastime or visible pastime was not the same, but the same mood of love. And how did Gadadhar Pandit understand? He didn't understand, I'm Radha and you're Krishna. That's not what was going on. It was for purposes of the Lord's pastimes. He saw as he saw. The second example is Gadadhar Das. in addition to Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Das was in the mood of a gopi selling milk products. He was one of Lord Nityananda's associates, most of whom were cowherd boys in their mood. But he would go, in the midst of kirtan, he'd just unfold into this ecstatic mood and start calling out like a gopi that had dairy products for sale in the marketplace. He'd go from shop to shop in the marketplace, calling out like a gopi that had milk for sale and yogurt for sale and butter for sale. It was his mood. But he was resisting Lord Chaitanya in his Yoga Dharma, giving the holy name in ecstatic love of God. And sometimes his ecstatic mood flowed in that direction, and sometimes it didn't. So the Leela appears different, but the bhava remains. Then there's not so much of that detail that you're probing. The gopis in their relationship with Krishna. Krishna is very clear. It's less spoken about or written about by our acharyas in terms of Lord Chaitanya's associates, but it's there. And Yoga Maya is fully active in both. It's deep, not easy to understand. Okay? Okay? Srila Prabhupada.